The vastness of space was a canvas of cold, dark silence, where distant stars twinkled like ancient witnesses to the movements of the universe. Among the countless planets and species, the Galactic Council had long ruled, their peacekeeping hand extending across countless star systems. For centuries, they had handled any threat, extinguishing any flickers of war before they had a chance to burn. Diplomacy was their weapon, and their advanced technology made them the unchallenged rulers of the cosmos. So, when they detected a new civilization on the edge of Council space, they were curious but never concerned. Earth, a planet of backward, barely developed life forms, was just another world to add to their archive of peaceful integration. A diplomatic envoy was sent, led by a seasoned officer from the Exelon Dominion, an amphibious species known for their calm and thoughtful approach to negotiation. They arrived on Earth with the usual expectation, a meeting, some formal greetings, a few days of learning about the new planet, and then the process of gently convincing the humans to join the great intergalactic community. But when the Exelon delegation landed in the heart of Earth's capital, they were greeted not by grand buildings or an eager crowd, but by something far more peculiar. The streets were empty. It was an odd sight, given the vibrancy of Earth's population. Then, a strange sound broke through the silence, the rhythmic beat of drums. A single figure, a human, appeared from the shadows, stepping out onto the public square. The humans didn't walk like other species, as though they were unsure of their purpose. No, they moved with purpose, with confidence, as if their every step was part of a larger design. And then, as more humans emerged, they began to dance. But it wasn't a dance of celebration or joy. It was something else entirely, an intricate, synchronized set of movements, as if each person were part of a larger, unseen machine. The Exelon delegation stood in stunned silence. The humans weren't performing a traditional dance. They were performing a war dance. There was no music, no clapping, no frivolity. Instead, it was a series of fast, sharp motions that seemed to defy logic. Each movement flowed into the next, a blend of speed and precision that seemed almost military. The council diplomats couldn't help but watch in baffled fascination. What was this strange display? Was this the way of Earth's people, this odd, unsettling choreography? At first, the Exelon officer, a creature with translucent skin and elongated limbs, dismissed it as a strange cultural ritual, a meaningless tradition. But as they observed longer, the pattern became impossible to ignore. The humans weren't just dancing. They were training. The formations they moved through mimicked military tactics, perfect teamwork, sudden shifts in positions, rapid strikes, and evasions. Every sequence was calculated, methodical, efficient. After days of observation, the Exelon delegation had a disturbing realization. What they had witnessed was not just a display of cultural pride, but a rehearsal. The humans had designed their very way of life around conflict. Their war dance wasn't a symbolic gesture. It was real training. They didn't need massive weapons or towering ships. They had learned how to win with nothing but coordination and creativity. The very motions of the dance taught them how to think and act as a unit, as one mind. In the face of any challenge, as the diplomats gathered to discuss their findings, their unease grew. Some of them spoke of warning Earth's leaders, of educating them about the power of the Galactic Council. Others spoke more urgently, of preparing for the unknown threat these humans might represent. But all of them agreed on one thing: this wasn't a civilization that could be ignored. On the last day of their visit, the Exelon officer attempted to approach the humans directly. A message was sent: "We are the Council. Your kind has been chosen to join the greater galactic family." A peaceful invitation, extended with the usual diplomacy and wisdom. However, when the response came, it was less than expected. The humans didn't speak in the formal, respectful tone typical of other species. Instead, their representative, a woman who had participated in the war dance, stood before them with a calm expression and said only one thing: "We do not need your peace." At that moment, the realization hit the Exelon like a slap in the face. The humans had no desire for peace. Not the kind the Council understood, at least. They were not interested in diplomacy. They were interested in survival and mastering the art of conflict in ways no one had ever anticipated. The Council had underestimated them. The war dance was not a celebration. It was a warning. The excellent officer tried to hold on to his composure as he boarded his ship. He glanced back at Earth, feeling the cold grip of fear begin to form in his chest. The data had been sent to the Council headquarters, but it wasn't enough to prepare them for the truth. The humans were not simply a primitive species. They had trained themselves, as a civilization, to be warriors, to fight, not with weapons, but with their very movements, their very being. They were not ready to join the peaceful Galactic Council. They had their own plans, and those plans were darker than anyone could imagine. When the excellent ship left Earth's orbit, the silent space once again felt unnervingly empty. The Council didn't know it yet, but they had just made a grave mistake. Earth and its people would not bend to the will of the Galactic Council. The war dance was only the beginning, and soon the galaxy would learn that humanity was not a species to be negotiated with. They were a species to be reckoned with. The Council had long prided itself on its ability to foresee and neutralize threats before they became real problems. When the excellent delegation returned to report their unsettling findings about Earth, their warnings were met with skepticism. Sure, the humans were odd, and their strange war dance was unlike anything the Council had seen, but they couldn't possibly be a serious threat. The species had barely discovered space travel, after all. Diplomacy, as always, would be the answer. They just needed more time. But time, as it turned out, was something the Council no longer had. Weeks passed in uneasy silence. The Council's capital buzzed with the usual political games, trade negotiations, and petty squabbles among member species. It seemed like the incident with the humans was already fading from memory until the first colony vanished. It was a remote mining world on the edge of Council space, insignificant to most, but vital to the economy. One day, a routine communication was sent, followed by silence. No signal. No warning. Just nothing. It wasn't until a rescue fleet was sent that the truth became clear. The colony was gone. The ship carrying the rescue team arrived to find nothing but ruins. The colony's defenses had been wiped out, as if the attackers knew precisely how to bypass every security measure in place. What was even stranger was the pattern left behind. In the dusty remains of what used to be a thriving mining colony, there were strange markings, almost like footprints, etched into the ground. The same patterns the humans had used during their war dance. The Council had a few old data files on Earth's history, just fragments of human culture, but they hadn't paid much attention to them. Now, in the quiet of a cold command center, the leaders of the Council had no choice but to re-examine everything they knew or thought they knew about humanity. And they began to see a terrifying picture unfold. Humanity's ancient history, once seen as primitive and irrelevant, now looked more like a blueprint for something darker. Their wars, their ancient battle formations, their rituals, each one seemed like a practice, a rehearsal for something bigger. The war dance had been no joke. It had been a precursor, a warning. And if one colony had been erased, then how many more could follow? The Council was starting to feel the pressure, but there was no clear path forward. To launch a full-scale investigation or military response against Earth would be risky. There was still too much uncertainty. Yet, the disappearance of the colony had sent ripples of fear through the galaxy. Other species, some of whom had joined the Council only recently, began to ask questions. What if the humans were more dangerous than they appeared? What if they had already built a fleet capable of overwhelming the entire Council? Then, just as the Council began to scramble for answers, a second report came in, this one even more disturbing. Another colony, this time a bustling agricultural world, had gone dark. No warning. No distress signals. Just silence. Panic set in as entire sectors of the Council's outer territories began to slip into chaos. But it wasn't just the disappearances that were strange. It was the fact that no one had seen or heard from the humans in months. The humans, who had once invited the Council to engage with them in diplomatic talks, had fallen into a kind of eerie quietude. There were no more messages, no more responses to the Council's repeated communications. The silence was deafening. and it felt deliberate. As if they were waiting. ASC, the tension grew. A secret emergency meeting was called. High-ranking officials and leaders from the most powerful species within the council gathered in a darkened chamber. The atmosphere was thick with unease. What had the humans done to these colonies? And why were they so careful, so meticulous in covering their tracks? One leader, an insectoid species known as the scree, spoke first. Their antennae twitched nervously as they examined the data. These attacks are not random. The humans are methodical. They're sending us a message. They paused, their multiple eyes darting to the others in the room. But what does it mean? Why have they chosen to strike now? No one had an answer. The humans had no reason to attack, or at least that's what they had thought. But the more the council dug into the intelligence reports, the more unsettling things became. The colonies had been wiped out with surgical precision. Weapons of mass destruction hadn't been used. Not a single bomb had dropped. There were no signs of large-scale battles, no scorched earth. Instead, it was as if the humans had simply removed them, one by one, with an unsettling ease. In a small outpost, a captured transmission finally revealed a disturbing image, a human ship, sleek and fast, moving through the shadows of the stars. The design was unlike anything the Council had ever seen. There was no sign of the large fleets they had expected. Instead, it was small, agile, and efficient. It wasn't a military ship, it was something else. An alarm went off as a new transmission came through. The image on the screen was chilling. The message read, "We are not here to join. We are here to reclaim." The room fell silent. It wasn't just a threat. It was a declaration. A message that would echo through the hearts of every species in the galaxy. The humans had been silent for so long, and now they were moving in the shadows, taking what they had claimed was rightfully theirs. The Council had no idea how to respond, but deep down, they all felt it. The dread, the realization that they had been outsmarted by a species they had underestimated. A species that had never needed weapons to be a threat. A species that had fought wars in ways no one had ever imagined. And in the distance, beyond the stars, the humans continued to wait silent, calculating, and ready for whatever would come next. The galaxy, vast and unfathomable, had always been a place of constant motion. The hum of spacecraft engines, the thrum of trade and communication, the never-ending flow of ships and signals that formed the lifeblood of the Galactic Council's reach. But now, the silence was becoming deafening. The Council's once proud fleets moved with uncertainty, and the stars themselves seemed to darken in the face of a threat they couldn't understand. And all the while, the humans, quiet, distant, and unpredictable, continued to move in the shadows, their intentions hidden from the Council's prying eyes. The disappearance of 2 colonies had sent shockwaves through the Galactic Council, but it wasn't until the 3rd colony went silent that the gravity of the situation truly settled in. This time, it wasn't a small, unimportant world. It was an agricultural planet that supplied food to entire sectors of the Council's space. Without warning, all contact was lost. No ships, no distress signals, just the cold emptiness of space. It wasn't even a full day before the Council dispatched its elite reconnaissance fleet to investigate. The fleet arrived at the planet's orbit and found nothing. No wreckage. No debris. No signs of a struggle. The planet was still there, untouched, as though the entire colony had simply vanished into thin air. The surface scans revealed no signs of radiation or weaponry. No trace of battle. But that was the problem. The planet was supposed to be bustling with life. Now, it was completely silent. One of the fleet commanders, a stern-faced reptilian named Zekroth, stared at the empty planet from the bridge of his command ship. "They're here," he muttered under his breath. His crew looked at him, confused. They had all seen the readings, but none of them could believe what they were seeing. "I'm telling you, they're here. They've already started." Zeroth wasn't talking about the humans, not directly. He was referring to something else. Something that made his skin crawl. They had scanned the planet's surface and detected small but very precise electromagnetic pulses, faint but impossible to ignore. They weren't coming from any of the usual sources, not from any satellites, not from the surface. They were coming from deep within the planet itself. The pulse was too weak to be a weapon, too subtle to be a ship's engine. But it was a message. Something hidden beneath the surface of the planet was sending out a signal. A message that hadn't been there before. Xerath ordered his fleet to move closer, scanning for any other unusual readings. But no sooner had the order been given than the silence of space was shattered by a sudden, sharp warning from the ship's sensors. A shadow loomed on the edge of their scanning range. It wasn't just one ship. It was an entire fleet, dozens of them, moving at incredible speed, faster than anything the Council had ever built. The commander's heart raced. It was happening. The humans had struck again. Xerath activated the communications channel and sent a distress signal to the Council's central command. His voice was cold, hard, and filled with the weight of urgency. "This is Fleet Commander Xerath. We've located the source of the disturbance. It's them. The humans have arrived. We are too far to make a direct defense. Requesting immediate reinforcements." The transmission flickered out of existence almost as soon as it left his ship. The fleet was cut off. There was no time to process it, no time to figure out how the humans had outflanked them so efficiently. The ships, sleek and agile, had already closed in, surrounding them. They were not fighting a battle, they were performing an intricate maneuver, every movement timed to perfection. Xerath's ship rocked violently as something collided with the hull. He looked out of the viewports and saw it. But it wasn't like anything the Council had seen before. The ship didn't resemble the bulky, weapon-heavy designs they'd expected from a hostile fleet. Instead, it was something more streamlined, an elegant, almost graceful thing. It didn't fight like the Council's enemies. It didn't even look like it wanted to fight. Xerath's crew worked frantically, trying to regain control of their ship. But each move the humans made, each shift in their position, seemed to confuse the Council forces. It was as though the humans had learned how to bend the very fabric of space itself. Their movements weren't random. They were deliberate, strategic. The humans weren't trying to overwhelm them. They were trying to dismantle them, piece by piece. The fleet commander gritted his teeth. He'd trained his entire life for this moment, but nothing could have prepared him for the humans' tactics. They weren't just attacking. They were dismantling everything the Council stood for. Their ships didn't fire conventional weapons. Instead, they released beams of energy that seemed to distort space around the Council ships, sending them tumbling through space in impossible directions, tearing their formation apart. The damage wasn't physical. It was mental. They were using tactics that no one had ever seen before. Nothing in the Council's extensive battle archives had prepared them for this. A heavy silence fell over the Council chamber. The leaders, each from a different species, sat in grim silence, their faces a mixture of disbelief and fear. The war had not been a war at all. It had been a complete, deliberate dismantling of everything the Council had built. There had been no show of force, no great cataclysmic event to announce the humans' arrival. It had been a slow, calculated destruction, and now there was nothing left to do but wait. "I don't understand," said a voice from the back of the room. It was a high-ranking official from the idol species, their many arms ringing nervously. How did we not see it? How did we not see how precise they were? One of the highest-ranking leaders, an ancient being from the Sig race, leaned forward. His long, silver eyes looked tired, as if the weight of their failure had aged him by centuries. "We ignored their potential. We thought them too weak, too primitive to pose a real threat. But their strength wasn't in their numbers or their technology. It was in their will, their drive. The humans, they never intended to join us. They wanted to break us. And they've done it." Outside the chamber, the sky was beginning to darken. The stars, once bright and full of promise, now looked like scattered ashes in a dying fire. The capital city, a monument to the Council's power, was now under lockdown. Civilian unrest was growing. Trade routes had been cut off. Entire fleets had been wiped out. And still, the humans pressed on, quietly, persistently, like a force of nature that could not be stopped at INA hidden bunker beneath the capital. A small group of surviving military commanders met in secrecy, away from the prying eyes of the council. They had one final plan. If they could rally enough forces, if they could push the humans back even a little, they might still stand a chance. But each commander knew the truth. It was too late. The humans weren't interested in a fight. They'd already won. "The last few ships we sent, they didn't even make it past the outer rim," said Commander Threx, his voice low and filled with frustration. "The humans are everywhere. We can't stop them. They're too fast. Too smart." "Then what's left to do?" another commander asked, desperation creeping into their voice. "Do we surrender? Do we just let them take everything?" Threx's eyes narrowed. "We don't have a choice. It's over. There's no coming back from this." Back in the heart of the capital, the council's leaders were beginning to realize the same truth. The galaxy as they knew it was dying. Their once dominant position, their power, their influence, all of it was slipping through their fingers. And all they could do was watch as humanity claimed the very galaxy that had been their playground for so long. As the human fleet continued to tighten its grip, something unexpected happened. A transmission was received by the council. It was a single, short message, and it sent chills down the spines of everyone who heard it. "We are here to guide you. Fall and rise with us." There was no threat, no violence, just the quiet, unwavering certainty that the humans had not come to destroy everything. They had come to reshape it. The council's dominance was over. The age of humanity had begun. The message was clear. The humans were not interested in ruling over the galaxy as the council had. They didn't want to replace the old order with a new empire. They wanted something different. They wanted a galaxy where they were not just participants, but the true architects of its future. A galaxy where strength, not politics, determined the course of events. The council's leaders, broken and weary, had no choice but to acknowledge the truth. Their time had passed. The humans had shattered the old order, not with destruction, but with precision and patience. They had stripped away the layers of power and deceit until nothing was left but the truth. Humanity had risen. The transition was not immediate. There were still pockets of resistance, species that refused to bow to the new rulers. But it was only a matter of time. The humans had proven something the galaxy had never considered. That sometimes true power didn't lie in numbers or weapons. Sometimes true power was in the quiet, relentless pursuit of a goal. In the ability to adapt, to learn, and to fight in ways others could never anticipate. And as the council's last ships disappeared into the void, their fate sealed by their own underestimation, humanity stood at the forefront of a new era. The galaxy had changed forever. And for the first time, the stars seemed a little brighter, their promise not of power or dominion, but of something far more profound, a future built by humanity. The council was gone. Humanity had risen. And with their rise came a new galaxy. A galaxy that would no longer be defined by the old ways of the past, but by the new symphony that had been quietly playing in the dark all along.